End of an era. What more can I say? After many unforgettable seasons, SNS Outfitter Guides is wrapping up our time in the Grays River region. But we are not saying goodbye. We're simply passing the baton to a fantastic couple who will continue the proud tradition of hunting in this incredible corner of Wyoming. In this video, we will share some favorite memories from our years outfitting in the Grays and introduce to you the couple that our outfitter Sy trusts to carry on the legacy. You won't want to miss these stories as we close this chapter. So, Sy, will you tell us, how did SNS Outfitter get its start outfitting in the Grays River area?
I tried to pursue an outfitting permit over here for about 10 years, and nothing was available or for sale. Tim and Cindy Haberberger knew I was looking, and they approached me one year at the Outfitters Convention and said, "Are you really serious about wanting to, get a permit and operate in the Grays?" And I said, "Yes, I've been looking for a long time. Nothing's available." And they go, "Well, we're really serious about selling out." And so we entered in discussions, took about a year, came up to an agreement, and then in 2005, bought the permit and started operating over here. And then in 2007, we bought a second permit, which we've referred to as the Jackson Hole Outfitters, and we bought that and operated that. So from 2007 on, we had 2 permits and 2 camps operating.
Cool. Obviously, something motivated you along the way to want to be able to bring hunters here and share that experience with them. What was it that brought you to this area?
So it goes back to my college years. I had a friend who lived in Afton, Wyoming. We met at Casper College, and he was from this part of the world, and so he's very familiar with the mountains here. We started coming over here on Friday nights, drive over, and then on Saturday morning we'd get up, saddle up a couple horses at his place, ride up in the mountains, different places all the time, sleep under the stars, and just explore. And then ride down again on Sunday morning, and then drive back to work, to go be ready to go work Monday morning. So I developed a keen interest and love for these mountains. So I thought about it for years, and then as our business model grew, we wanted to pursue a permit over here, pursue an operation. There was just nothing for sale. It took about 10 years, and finally Tim and Cindy Haberberger talked to us and said, "Hey, we're thinking about, selling out. Are you interested?" And so we started that conversation, spent a year and a half going through it, and then in 2005 the permit transferred and we started operating over here.
Okay.
We had grown to a point where we had our clients were looking for more hunting opportunities, and we needed to grow. And so this was a choice that worked out really well for us. And then in 2007, one of my longtime friends had an outfitting business over here, and he'd gotten in trouble with the IRS. And they actually advertised that they were going to sell his permit, the IRS did. We were all at an outfitters convention, and we all got the same email from the IRS saying that his permit was for sale and his intellectual property, which, obviously it was a direct dig from that IRS agent. The timing of it was not an accident.
Below the belt.
Yeah, we were all there. So didn't want to pursue it at first, thought about it for 2 or 3 weeks, then it's like, you know what, somebody's going to buy that operation. We should consider it. So we gathered up the money, and I came over here to the auction, and it was basically at the courthouse steps in Afton. It showed up, they split it. They had his intellectual property going for sale after the permit, which kind of caught me off guard. So we were the high bidders on the permit, and at the completion of that, I only had $5,000 in cash left, and you had to pay in cash at the time of the sale.
Okay.
And the intellectual property came up, and pretty much nobody bid. We bid $500 and we got it, and then we were signing the paperwork with the IRS agent. He said, we had all these websites evaluated, and the independent appraiser appraised this JacksonHoleOutfitters.com worth $55,000. And you guys just paid $500 for all of it. Yeah, so I think everybody, we would have really been sunk if we wouldn't have been able to get the intellectual property and the website, because that was a huge part.
What are some of your favorite memories of both from, outfitting up here, both at the Jackson Hole Outfitters and from the famed Box Y Lodge?
They're all jumbled up. There's just so many things, but I would have to say experience-wise, the bear hunting's been a real fun thing. We've learned a lot about the bear hunting. It wasn't that big when we first got here. We were taking like 6 bear hunters a year, and killing 2 or 3 bears. But the bear population was just a fraction of what it is now. And the bear population has just exploded. And then there's an incredible thirst for color-phased black bears.
Okay.
And these bears over here, about 95% of the bears we've killed in the last 20 years are color-phased bears. Only very few of them are actually black.
And that translates to that we've got some black colored, we've got a lighter brown, off to the cinnamons, and then the blondes, correct?
Yeah, and the most popular, the one that we kill the most of is just a kind of a standard brunette brown bear. Nothing real pretty, but a color-faced bear. And then the second one are the chocolates. The chocolate bear is probably the second most we kill. They're just a dark, deep chocolate, beautiful bears. And then blondes, and then bears that are multicolored. They have multiple different colors to them. And then followed by the last is the blacks. And there's times when we don't kill a black bear for a couple of years. In the world, there's a section of Alberta that has a high number of color-faced bears. The Four Corners area has a lot of color-faced bears in this area.
Okay.
And this is probably produces more than anybody else as far as pure color-faced bears.
Yeah.
So our hunters pursue those because they're die-hard bear hunters and they're looking for a color-faced bear. So we get a lot of that. And then we came over primarily in the beginning for the trophy mule deer hunting because this area just has a world-class mule deer.
Yes, and took quite a few trophies.
Yeah, we took a lot of big ones. And of course that's waned in recent years, but boy, we did really well for a long time. We used to take 25, 30 deer hunters a year when we first got over here. Wow. We're just taking a fraction of that now, but we take a lot of bear hunters now.
Right.
And the elk hunting's always been good. It's been good, respectable elk hunting. It's hard elk hunting because there's so much country here. More than anything else is just the challenges of running this company this far from home and running 2 camps over here successfully. That's been a challenge, but it's also great memories too.
Yeah. You talked about the terrain. It's remarkable here. High valleys, the river running through it. What is it like for these folks when they're hunting in this area?
The steepness of it this is without a doubt the steepest hunting country in the state of Wyoming. It takes some of these people by surprise. You try to brief them on it, and we've had some incredible moments where we had one hunter in particular. He went up to the top of the mountain, got up there, got daylight, and he realized where he was at. He was just looking straight down and steep, and he was overcome with fear. And he would not ride or walk off the mountain. He scooched down all the way off.
Oh my gosh.
He just wore his pants out.
Oh.
The guy was terrified. That was it. He was not going back up. We had another hunter, similar type situation. He was up here and he realized he was over his head. And he actually left in the middle of the night.
Oh.
Left everybody a nice tip, wrote him a nice note, and said,
Bye.
Goodbye.
I'm done.
Yep.
This was too far out of his comfort zone.
Too far.
Okay.
And so that's been an interesting deal. And then the physicality of this hunt requires a hunter to definitely, for the mule deer especially, get himself in shape. The bears not so much. Elk in the middle somewhere, but the mule deer, it's an extreme hunt. It's like sheep hunting for mule deer.
Wow. Okay. I would say that one of your absolute assets is if you are thrown some sort of little obstacle, a wrinkle in the plan, and you go to work and you figure out a new way and logistics and execute and communicate the plan, and then you've got this incredible team that is all there ready to execute. And this river, this area has presented you with a couple of opportunities to showcase those skills. Will you tell us about those challenges that you've faced here?
There's several, and we'll go over the highlights, but one of them that was a challenge was the year we had the fire upriver, and it closed off basically half our bear baits, and we still had bear hunters coming in. So that was a huge challenge. The fire ended up going over the mountain and leaving the Grays River, so it kind of saved us a little bit there, but that was tough. And it happened, during premium time in September. The second one that comes to mind was the year that they were replacing the bridge to the boxway.
Yeah.
That one was challenging because they were going to do it right during bear season. And so it's like, okay, how are we going to get people and equipment across the river
Yeah.
if the bridge is being reconstructed? And so we met with the contractor, and then we were talking to him about our needs. It's like, well, you know, is there any way we can walk across that bridge we can use?
Right.
And it was kind of interesting because the Forest Service ranger that was there, he knew we were going to talk about some things that he didn't want to hear, like walking across a bridge
Right.
under partial construction and that sort of stuff. And so there's all kinds of safety rules there. So he left the room, excused himself, and me and the contractor got to have a talk, and we negotiated a pretty good deal. Said, if you can get us across that bridge, like lay plywood down to where we can get across that bridge as much as possible, we are going to open our showers up to you, and we're going to have you guys to the camp every week for a steak dinner.
Nice.
And it worked out really well. Now there was times we couldn't do that. There was times we built a shuttle across the river with a raft and ropes, just like what we'd use from our rescue training in the fire department.
Yeah.
And we'd shuttle hunters back and forth. So we'd ride a vehicle to the river, get in the raft, go across the river, had another set of four-wheelers over there and trucks, and then we'd get on those and then go hunting or baiting or whatever. And so it was a challenging year, but ultimately it went a lot smoother than I thought it was going to. But that was, like you said, we had key people in place and a lot of planning.
Yeah.
And so it worked out really well. But the biggest challenge was the year of the Porcupine Slide. That was just almost overwhelming. We strongly considered canceling our bear season that year. And so you're weighing the options, you know, should we go forward with it? Should we cancel it? You know it's going to be a revenue buster. You're not going to make any money.
Right.
So
let's paint a picture of what it looked like. So we had this giant slide that came down, blocked the road. I mean, the road was just gone down into the river.
It pinched the river to where it backed up a pretty good size of water where they were worried about flooding.
So unable to come up the grade.
And the slide was not stable. It was not safe to drive across it, and the Forest Service wasn't going to let anybody drive across it. So it occurred between the lower camp, the Jacksonville Outfitters camp, which is at 14 miles, and the Box Y, which is at 28 miles. And so it cut us off basically between the two.
Yeah.
And we had baits on both sides of the slide. It was a challenge. And so we decided to go forward with it. And we had, at the time, we had a fleet of tracked four-wheelers that were fairly new to us. And so we used those to come from the Pinedale side to shuttle our bait and our equipment while we had good snow back and forth. And then Tim brought his groomer up there and made some trips with us and actually knocked the snow down so we could travel easier on it with those tracked vehicles. And we got all of our bait in, got everything in, and then we were kind of set up and ready to go for the season. Yeah. And then next thing you know, the Forest Service didn't even tell us. They opened up the McDougal Gap Road, which they never do. Yeah. They opened it up. They started opening up on May 1st with a Caterpillar, and within 3 or 4 days we had it open. So we were able to then transfer everybody into the Box Y via pickup. So I was really glad we ended up doing it because they didn't tell anybody they were going to do it. They just did it.
And it looked like this absolute wall tunnel that you would drive through.
It was just
no packed
10 to 15 foot walls on both sides of the road. But it worked, and it stayed open, and we were able to go back and forth all spring and have a very successful bear season. In fact, on heavy snow years like that, those are some of our best bear years. Yeah. And a lot of the sows and cubs will stay in hibernation longer, so you're just basically hunting boars. And so we had it to ourselves. We were the only ones up here hunting that year. Yeah. And so the bear hunting was really good.
Yes. So it was worth all the effort.
It was a good decision to go. It really was. So, and then, you know, there's another year I kind of forgot about, but before that, we had a really heavy snow year. It was bad. And the Box Y yard was just full of 4.5 feet of this heavy, wet snow. It was almost impossible to go through with anything. And we didn't have the tracked wheelers at the time. So there was a dealer in Jackson who rented Argos. So we thought, well, let's try an Argo. And so he had them leased out to a company that had just finished with them. So I actually went to Oregon with a truck and a flatbed trailer, picked them up and brought them back. And then we used them. And it sounded like a really good idea unless you try to drive 28 miles in Argo. It's like driving a little tank. It was a nightmare. But we used them, and they got us around until the snow started to melt enough to where we can get our customers in and out with pickup trucks, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was, I'll never forget it, because that yard, the Boxway, just looked blue. The snow was so full of water. And if you stepped off the Argo on those flat areas like that, you literally would have a foot and a half of water go up to your knees underneath the snow.
Oh,
it was
wow.
so full of moisture.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, that year was incredibly trying because we didn't have the equipment. At least when we had the slide, we had to jump already by having the tracked weeders. So that helped.
Yeah. We've had 20 years of success operating in the Grays River area. I'm guessing there's been probably some key players who have been instrumental in that.
Oh yeah.
Who would you say?
That's it. I'm really glad you brought that up, because when we first got the permit to operate out of the Boxway, we actually planned on Oki von Segred, who's one of our principals, to be the operator manager on the ground over here. And it's kind of like, we're going to buy this division and put it underneath your wings. Oki was our manager for a number of years, and then his life went a different direction. And so he separated, and then Ralph LeBac, who had about 20 years operating this country before he met us, and he had guided for Tim and Cindy and had his own camp at one time up at the head of the river, approached me and said, hey, I think I would like to try that job. I'd like to try to manage it. And so I said, all right, Ralph, let's give it a shot. And he stepped in, he has done an absolutely beautiful job.
Yeah. Oh, he's an asset and a half.
He knows the country. He's taught our guides a whole lot of the country up here, both from air. We used to bring wind condid over here, and he would, one of my friends, and he would fly and help us aerial scout this country and try to figure out how to hunt it.
Okay.
And Ralph understood where the trails are, and he could go with these guides on the ground, or at least talk them through how to find a trail. He doesn't forget anything. Every trail he's ever been on, he's remembered, even if it was 30 years ago. And then during the spring bear season, somebody that was really instrumental for a number of years was Richard Fink. He was kind of a stalwart. He would come over here every year during bear season and guide bear hunts and bait and all this stuff. And then physically it got to wearing on him, but he was over here every year and really helped us develop our bear hunting. Jim Barton spent a lot of time over here with the same thing. He comes over every year. It helps us. Mark War, who also managed at the Jackson Hole Outfitters camp for a couple of years. He guided deer over here. He guided bear hunts, so he was always around helping us. And then of course David Dandridge, who actually came over here first. So he guided for Tim and Cindy in 2004.
Okay.
I asked him to come over and work for them that year so he could kind of learn the trails and learn what we were getting into.
Sure.
And it was great because he had everything on the ground experience, and then he came over and has been here ever since. And in fact, he fell so much in love with the Grays River that he moved his family over here.
Yes.
So it's in his blood.
Yeah.
And,
it gets in everybody's blood.
yeah,
It's
and especially
in mine.
Yep. And so there's been many other guides. Oh, and at the Box Y, I can't forget Miss Cindy Haverberger. So Cindy's rock solid as a cook. So she's always cooked for us when we came over, which is great to know that you always have somebody that's solid, takes care of the shopping, always puts out great food, is always on time. And then she trained her daughter Megan, who was going to be taking us over, in the same routines and the same skill set. And so I can't even tell you, to have a quality manager on the ground, have some key guides, and to have a rock solid cook, it just makes my job so much easier. Because you can find the other people to backfill here and there, but those are such key positions. And then when we bought the Jackson Hole Outfitters camp, we were fortunate enough that Grant Gertch came with it.
Okay.
So Grant had worked for the outfitter, and so he knew the country, and he knew how the camp was supposed to operate, all that type of stuff. And he had a lot of ownership, and he took a lot of pride in that, how that camp worked. And one of the guides that we inherited from the previous outfitter was Tom Ruska. And Tom is just an absolutely skilled mule deer hunter, very fun person to be around, incredible physical beast when it comes to hunting mule deer, heck of a guy. And he was here with us for a number of years, and when he wasn't killing big deer or killing bears with us, he was being funny, and he was super fun to have around. And then David Cardinal stepped in after Grant Gertch left, and David Cardinal did a really good job of running this camp in the fall. And there were several guides that worked for us at the time through those years who've gone on to become outfitters on their own now. So they're kind of their formative years.
Sure.
We're learning here from Ralph and from Oki. So we're pretty proud of that in a lot of ways. But probably the two most key players at the Jacksonville Outfitters camp was Mark and Jan. So Mark and Jan Gibbons came to us. They were working at Spring Creek, and Mark kept talking to Grant every year and kind of wanted to work somewhere where he could live at the camp.
Yeah.
And feel that whole full-time experience of living in the mountains. So we hired Mark and Jan. Originally, Mark was a trail guide and Jan would be occasionally a trail ride guide, but she didn't really we weren't doing overnights. So she didn't really have a real big role, but then we developed overnights and she was the cook for that. And then she stayed on and cooked in the fall for hunting camp. So she became real instrumental, real important. Mark would wrangle in the fall. He would be that lead trail ride guide in the summer. Absolutely the best trail ride guide ever. He was so fun. He looked the part.
Big time. I call him the trail boss.
Yep, and he knew how to tell jokes, and he knew how to entertain people, and they just so heavily requested. They were always wanting to ride with Mark. They rode with Mark before. He had a little routine. He'd go in his tent in the morning, he'd get all dressed, get his chaps on, and he'd put his do-rag on and all the stuff. And
Curl up the mustache.
Yeah, curl up the mustache.
Extra.
Come out of the tent, and he'd tell his wife, "It's showtime." So he loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really good at it. He loved it, and it came through. And then, like all of us in life, he just got a little age, and it became hard.
Yep.
Then pretty soon he was down to riding 2 or 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And it just killed him that he wasn't able to go out every day. And then him and Jan retired, basically.
What would you say lessons that you've taken home that the Grays River area has taught our staff and you?
The number one is horsemanship. You can have good horse skills and horsemanship skills, but when you come into this level of extreme country, how you take care of the horses, the type of horses you have, the equipment you have, and your attention to detail with taking care of those horses, trading them out. You know, a lot of outfitters are able to run with just a couple spares, and the horse can go every day.
Yeah.
Get a couple days rest between.
Not here.
Not here. They got to be switched out every day here, and some horses maybe every third day. And then we ride with Croupers over here. You know, we went to buy and having built, actually, Randy George, one of our guides for G-Bar G saddles, actually started building saddles for us because they have to be really quality mountain saddles to work over here.
Any other lessons?
Yeah, and then the type of horses. So this is quarter horse country to a degree, but if you're going to run quarter horses, straight quarter horses in here, you've got to have a lot of them. So it's better to run a draft cross. So a horse that may be half draft, half quarter horse, quarter draft. They're bigger, raw boned horses. They've got good heads on them, but they can handle these. They have a lot of muscle, and they can push up these mountains.
So why now? Why the pivot? How come we're leaving the Grays River area?
Well, you know, it was an opportune time. What happened was Megan had asked me when she was in high school if at some point in time I would sell her that permit back so she could put her parents' whole operation back. And I committed to her then. And the timing of that worked out well for them. You know, they're starting a new family, and it's a perfect time for them to. And we got offered a good offer to buy that trail ride camp and the Jacksonville Outfitters camp. And so we jumped on that at the same time. And so it just was one of those things that fit. But there were also, other considerations. The length of our operation, how long we've had it, the size of our operation. We also decided it was time to expand our elk opportunities.
Yes.
Because elk is just king right now in Wyoming. So we found some opportunities to increase our elk hunting. And then it's half the travel distance. So from Casper over here is a full day, it's 8 hours. And then you do whatever you gotta do, then you got another 8 hours back. And the other camps that we're buying over by DuBois, you're literally 3.5 hours from my house. So you can actually go over there, get a full day's work in and drive home that same night. Yeah. So there's some wear and tear on our bodies, equipment, all that sort of stuff of this much travel time. So it made sense. It was a good move. The timing was absolutely perfect. It just worked out really well.
It almost sounds like you're scaling back, but I know better. So tell us, what is the future for SNS Outfitters from here on out?
So like I said, elk is king in Wyoming right now. Wyoming can boast and prove every year, and have for about 3 or 4 years now, that of the highest success ratios in the West for elk hunters. It's incredible. It's like 45% of the people that go elk hunting in Wyoming kill an elk, which is better than Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Montana. It's just phenomenal elk hunting right now. And the caliber of bulls is really good. So it's like, well, the handwriting on the wall means that elk hunting is kind of king. It's a big market anyway. Hunters love to go elk hunting. And so it just was a perfect time for us to increase our inventory in a really good elk area and continue to grow in a different way. So we're not scaling back so much from having a very busy, very vibrant hunting operation, but we are changing how it looks. And going forward in the future, it's going to be kind of a weird combination, but it's going to be primarily an elk antelope operation with some mule deer hunting.
Nothing wrong with that.
Mule deer are challenged right now. It's a challenged species. I will miss the bear.
Yes.
The bear has been fun. It's unique, and it was a fun place to have like our older hunters that maybe have aged out on the elk hunting or the extreme deer hunting and stuff, and we could take them bear hunting and we still get to enjoy their company and have them as clients for 2 or 3 more hunts. So I do miss, I know I will miss that for sure.
Yes.
But at the same time, the rest of it made sense. It was just a real good time to do it.
Really invigorating, exciting options coming our way. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those new camps that you're?
Yeah, they're both in really a unique area of Wyoming. The fact that the one camp is a 6-mile pack into the wilderness.
Okay.
So that's an incredible experience. There's wolves and grizzly bears and really good elk hunting, and challenges of hunting off of a horse and mules, and then the wall tents. All that is just super exciting. The other camp is on the edge of the wilderness, so it's accessed by ATVs. It's quite a journey to get in there, and then from there you hunt into the wilderness horseback. So they're both horseback adventures, which I really, there's a lot of people out there. I hear it on the phone so much anymore. It's like, just one time I want to experience what it's like to go on a wilderness elk hunt with horses and mules and wall tents. So there's a lot of nostalgia. A lot of hunters want that again. I remember 25 years ago, all you heard on the phones, I want to hunt private land, I want to hunt private land. And now the reverse is true. It's like they've hunted the private land. It has its own sets of niceties to it, but it's not a wilderness elk hunt. It's not that horseback experience. That's so unique. So there's been a huge resurgence in people wanting to experience that. So we're super excited about it too.
And this is by no means the end of their options for hunting in the Grays River area. Who are you passing the baton to, and why have they earned to get to have those reins?
Well, Megan and Riley. So Megan is Tim and Cindy's daughter, and they're the people we bought that permit from. And she was basically raised at the Box Y. I think she was 2 years old when they moved there. So she'd been there her whole life, and it's what she knows. And she, when she came to me and asked me if she could, buy the permit and do it, I had to honor that because she's like a third daughter, and I knew she would be real successful at it, really enjoy it, and it's in her blood. So yeah, it's like I'm super excited for them. We're going to help them what we can, get them some hunters that are interested in hunting over here, or past hunters that contact us and say, well, you know what, I'm looking for another bear hunt or whatever. Then we're going to make sure we put them in touch and get them where they need to be. But they're going to do fine because they live here full time, which is a huge advantage to them. So by living here full time, they don't have that travel time that we've had to deal with. And their equipment's right there, everything's right there. They don't have that constant setup and tear down that we've had to deal with always over the years coming over here. So yeah, they're going to do real well with it. And then it's a great add-on because they have a very vibrant summer business and an incredible snowmobile business in the fall. So this is just a really nice, nifty way to tie spring and fall with what they already have with winter and summer. So it really makes sense for them to do it.
Now you keep saying they, but you didn't really address Riley. Riley has worked as a guide for SNS Outfitters, so he's absolutely come up through the ranks, learned a ton, and has become quite the guide.
Yes, he has.
He will be the outfitter for this operation.
And that's Megan's husband, and he knew what he was getting into when he married her. He knew what the lifestyle that he was hooking up with. And Riley has come into his own, and we've been using him this spring and a little bit last year, we've been using him as a kind of a trainee manager. So he's learning the ropes on how to manage and run a camp.
Yeah.
That was by design,
Yeah.
so that he would, get that experience ahead of time. And it's paying off. He's coming into his own. Because it's a lot different than just being a hunting guide.
Yeah.
So when you're a hunting guide, I don't mean say that way, but when you're a hunting guide, your area of responsibility is 2 hunters and your horses that day. Well, when you're a manager and then add on an owner, well, now you're in charge of the bottom line,
It's a different ballgame.
booking the hunts,
Yeah.
making sure that they're profitable. When they're not profitable, you've got to figure out how to make that work at the end of the year, and then being a guide at the same time. So his job duties have really increased. Now Megan will be a great asset to have as a partner in that business, because she understands the marketing and that aspect of it, and she'll be able to answer the phones and take care of that stuff when Riley's out doing other things. And Riley's pretty excited about it. He is also going to be hunting lions.
Yeah.
Which he's pretty jacked about.
Very,
that.
yeah.
And he'll do real well with that.
Yeah, that's exciting. So as a handoff to them, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them that you could share with our audience as well, as far as finding success in the beautiful Grays River area as an outfitter?
I'm going to say the biggest takeaway, which I think has been SNS's key to success, is your job is to manage the logistics from top to bottom. It is the outfitter's job to make sure that everything is there for your guides to be successful. My saying to my guides, and I've said this many times over the years, my job is to make sure, and this is what Riley and Megan's job is to make sure that when the guide wakes up in the morning, he only has to worry about one thing, and that's if he's going to have 1 cup of coffee or 2.
Okay.
All the rest of it's there.
Yes, the details
horses,
are handled.
The saddles are in good shape. The clients are there. They're taken care of. They're well fed. All of that is and the equipment's going to stay together. Your trailers are welded up, and you're answering their emails. You're answering their phone calls. You're answering their questions. You're taking care of the paperwork, the liability waivers, all that stuff. That is huge, and you will retain staff. One of the things that will get an outfitter in trouble quicker than anything is if his employees are dealing with a camp where the food's not there, or they're having to help the cook, the cook can't get out of bed, or they don't have enough horses, the saddles are junk, that kind of stuff, that you will lose staff so quick. And I think one of the reasons we've been so successful at retaining staff, it's not because they love what they do, but they could do that with a lot of outfitters, but they love the fact that all those details are taken care of, and they really just kind of got to show up and go to work and go hunt.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, that's great advice, and we will let Megan and Riley go to work.
There you go.
What a ride it's been in the Grays River region. We're thrilled to see Megan and Riley stepping into this role and bringing new energy to Sheep Mountain Outfitters as they carry on what Tim and Cindy kicked off all those years ago. But as one chapter closes, another begins, and SNS Outfitters is more excited than ever about our new adventures, elk hunting in the Absaroka Mountains north of Du Bois. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Stay tuned right here on the SNS Outfitter YouTube channel as we continue to bring you the very best of hunting in Wyoming and Montana.